So way back in the day, I did a video covering Jushiro, and I can't help but feel that I did the boy just a little bit dirty. I mean, even the thumbnail wasn't all that good, the title was like, yeah sure, Jushiro's a little strong I guess. And I really just didn't do the guy justice, because Jushiro is actually one of the most powerful captains in the Gotei 13. It's just, he doesn't have very blatant feats, so it's really hard to determine how strong he is without kind of digging deep into the series. And even then, his feats aren't super clear, right? So a lot of people do mistake Jushiro for being really weak or just being kind of a side captain, when in all reality, he's one of the strongest. So in this video, we're going to talk about that. If you enjoy this type of Bleach power scaling though, I upload videos every other day since we're now on the Hub summer schedule. So leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel to help support the channel, and click that join button if you want to go that extra mile and also gain access to hidden content here on the channel. I upload debates and you can see past live streams if you are a channel member. So, you know, if any of that interests you, click that join button. But with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the boy Jushiro. Now, like every other video, we're going to go through all the arcs that Jushiro has been in and talk about some of his feats, but you will notice that a lot of Jushiro's feats are a bit more subtle. So, starting off with the Soul Society arc, probably his least impressive feat is him being able to just body Kyan. I mean, Kyan is fairly powerful. He's considered one of the most powerful lieutenants of his time. But with Jushiro being a captain, it shouldn't be all that surprising that he's able to fold Kyan, but it is there, it is nice, I guess. But we really start to move into more impressive showings when we actually see Jushiro restrain Byakuya at the Repentance Cell, and this is a Byakuya that's about to kill Ganju, and Jushiro comes in out of nowhere, grabs his arm, and he's like, hey man, isn't it a little dangerous here already? Calm down. And Byakuya's like, well, you know, I gotta kill these people. Like, he gets all schmarmy and prideful, right? Does the typical Byakuya thing, and Jushiro's like, come on man, like, you can't be murdering people, that ain't cool. Which again is a very subtle feat, because not only is Byakuya giving up on killing somebody now that Jushiro has showed up and said like, hey man, that's not cool, but Jushiro is also capable of restraining Byakuya. And you can argue this makes sense because the other showing Jushiro has in the arc is alongside his homeboy Shunsui, he takes on Yamamoto, the head captain of the Gotei 13. And this is a bit odd because we don't really get to see how the fight goes down. We do know that Jushiro and Shunsui do get a little bit injured because we see a little like blood on Jushiro's face, and we don't see Yamamoto with any injuries. But the fact that they're able to last and just not get obliterated by a Yamamoto that's like, you have to die for the sake of justice, is very impressive. I mean, it would be like Sakura pulling up to Madara and then she's fighting with him, and then when we cut back, Sakura's a little bit messed up, right? But she's still alive, and you're like, man, you've been fighting Madara for 30 minutes and you're not dead? That's really good, man. So it's the same thing for Shunsui and Jushiro. Like, they might not have done a whole lot against Yamamoto, but Yamamoto is not able to actually put them down. And we do see that they're able to actually take attacks from them. We know they got hit and they didn't die. Like, they're just like, oh, just a little blood on my head. Just a minor injury getting hit by Yamamoto with his transcendent spiritual pressure and everything. Which you can argue the reason they're actually able to fight Yamamoto and his transcendent spiritual pressure, because Yamamoto actually compliments them and says, you two have transcendent battle power and you guys transcend the other captain. Like, you guys are just godly in comparison to everybody else. So you can argue that they get like some of the best showings in the arc. You know, like, yeah, sure, Ichigo gets to fight Byakuya, that's cool. Toshiro gets to fight Gin, that's pretty cool, but Shunsui and Jushiro are like scrapping with Yamamoto and doing pretty well. And that's a very, very solid start for them in the Soul Society arc. Then we move to the Fate Karkura Town arc, or just the Arrancar saga as a whole. It doesn't really matter, because the only thing Jushiro does in this arc is he just bullies Lillinette, which I will say, I really do like this scene with Jushiro and Lillinette. It's super adorable, and it really shows you how Jushiro works as a character. Like, even when facing his enemy, he wants them to do better. Even though Hollows are like the mortal enemies of the Shinigami, and they're here to try to basically kill all the Shinigami, Jushiro is still trying to teach his opponent a lesson and is still trying to help them get better in battle. Like, if that's not a really good stand-up guy, I don't know what is, man. Maybe he's just also got a little bit of naivety in there, but I think that's just very, very cool for his character. But then what people often forget about is that Jushiro pulled up to Stark and was doing better against Stark than Shunsui was. Like, Shunsui was getting pushed to use his Bankai against Stark, whereas Jushiro comes in there, starts flipping all of his Seros around and is reacting to everything, and he's doing absolutely fine. Now, you could argue that it's because Jushiro is better equipped to take on Stark because of how his abilities work, but we'll get to something in the Thousand Year Blood War that actually might lend credence to Jushiro might actually be a bit stronger than Shunsui. This actually might be a good feat for him, being placed a little above him. Because keep in mind, this is a Stark who is resolved to fight them, right? Not the Stark at the end of the fight with that Shunsui kills, who is depressed because all of his friends and family are dying, right? And he's like, these are the only friends he's ever had. And then they're all dying around him. He feels like he's failing eyes. And then Shunsui basically just mercy kills him at that point. He's like, look, you're a little down bad. Let me just take you out for your own sake. But Jushiro's fighting the amped Stark, right? And he just does better than Shunsui does. And I think that's rather impressive. Unfortunately, we don't get to actually see him fight against Aizen. I would have really loved to see that because Jushiro gets sneak attacked by Wonderwise, which actually might not be an L because, you know, Wonderwise was designed to contain Yamamoto's Zanpakuto, may or may not contain Yamamoto's Bankai as well, you know, if you want to make that argument. So, needed Bankai Yamamoto to your characters to bring down Jushiro. I'm not saying I agree with that, but if you want to argue that to save a little bit of face and reputation for Jushiro, I mean, you could argue that, but I will say that I really did want to see Jushiro fight Aizen because they're built very similarly. And you actually see that in the Soul Society arc, whereas Sanjin talks to Kaname, Rangiku talks to Gin, but Jushiro's the one that talks to Aizen. You would have thought it would have been like Yamamoto or somebody, but it's Jushiro. And he's almost like a good guy version of Aizen. And we'll get into that with the Thousand Year Blood War. Because in the Thousand Year Blood War, we get a pretty good tidbit of information about Jushiro. For one, we learn that because he's so sickly, he has to maintain his body with his own spiritual pressure. So what that means is he's basically like Aizen. He's got an insane amount of spiritual pressure. In fact, the gate they're trying to make to reach the Soul Palace, when Jushiro dies, releasing the right arm of the Soul King, they lose like a vast majority of the spiritual pressure they built up just because Jushiro's gone. And they actually say none of the other captains even comes close to the amount of spiritual pressure that he had. And I don't know about you guys, but spiritual pressure, if you have a lot of it, you're kind of a big deal in the verse. I mean, that's why Aizen was a war potential for Yuha, just because of how much spiritual pressure he had. And then, like, look at characters like Kenpachi, who just completely negate damage because they have so much spiritual pressure. And yet, somehow, even characters like Kenpachi and even someone like Shunsui, who's supposed to be a rival to Jushiro, they don't even come close to the amount of spiritual pressure that Jushiro has. But the thing is, he has so much of it, he just doesn't get to make use of it all that often. Because most of that power is going to maintaining his frail and dying body. Because do remember, as strong as he is and as powerful as he is, he got one-tapped by Wonderwise. One good shot is enough to bring him down. Which is also why I think it's very impressive he's able to fight Yamamoto and take damage, because we know that he's frail, and yet getting attacked by Yamamoto didn't make him go down. But then we also learn that he has like this second form he can go into, because after doing the Kame ritual, he's able to be like, I am now the right arm of the Soul King, so he's like a whole different person. And he releases the Mime Hage, which causes him to die, but it's extremely powerful. You could almost look at it as like a Danzo situation, where Danzo from Naruto has the reverse tetragram seal, which is really powerful, but it causes him to die in the process. The same thing could be said for the Mime Hage, because the Mime Hage is able to restore balance to the entire Bleach multiverse, right? Like, all of the realms stop shaking, everything is restored, balance is established throughout all the realms, the earthquakes and everything stop just by the Mime Hage grabbing the broken Soul King. So it's not exactly practical to bring out in a fight, but it is something he has in the back pocket. And do keep in mind, he's not considered that powerful because he has the Mime Hage. That's on his own merits. Him having like the vastest spiritual pressure of all of the captains, that's just him. It's just most of that's going to maintaining his body. The Mime Hage is a whole different thing. So yeah, the Thousand Year Blood War definitely did do Jushiro some justice, and I really wonder how much of a monster this guy would have been if he wasn't sick. Like, imagine we have Jushiro in the Thousand Year Blood War, and he gets cured of his disease by Mayuri, by Kisuke, by giving up the right arm of the Soul King. You know, the Soul King's like, you know what? Because you did that really based act, you really helped me out, I'm gonna go ahead and cure you of your disease. Imagine how much of an animal this guy would be, because he's already surpassing all of the Shinigami present. I mean, we've got like post-Zero Squad Byakuya there, we have post-training Kenpachi there, Shunsui's there, a ton of very big powerhouse captains are present, and yet apparently they don't even come close to what Jushiro's packing. And the only thing holding him back is that all of that spiritual pressure has to go to maintaining his body. So I'm just saying, if you want to break out a hypothetical not sick Jushiro, he would be like top 5 in the verse maybe. He would be insanely OP. But unlike a lot of other Bleach characters that are like really powerful, but they don't really have any abilities to really speak of, Jushiro actually has a decent Shikai ability. What it allows him to do is absorb an attack and then redirect it at his opponent, although he can adjust the velocity and pressure of said attack to throw his opponent off as well. So he can make it faster, slower, stronger, weaker, anything that he can do to kind of throw their balance off. And we used to kind of only think it worked with like spiritual attacks like Seros or like, you know, like normal energy based attacks. But then we had stuff like BBS and stuff come along and they extrapolated, and we see him like doing it with fire and lightning and all this other weird stuff. And while I know BBS is a mobile game and some people are going to be like, well, I don't know about that, it is an officially licensed game. And Kubo does work with them on the game. So with it being officially licensed and with Kubo being involved with a lot of the development and everything, I mean, they seemingly just have him on speed dial because they're like, hey man, we want like Beyond Bankai Byakuya, and he's like, alright, let me just design that real quick. It's safe to say that he could do that with the different elemental attacks as well, and even if you don't really like that and you're like, well, I don't buy that it's officially licensed, and even if Kubo's involved, it's not in the manga, then you could just say Composite Jushiro, you know, who cares? But interestingly enough, and the last little nugget I want to leave you guys with is that in 13 Blades, there's a lot of like little interview statements about the characters, and the thing that was said and is not forgotten about is that Kubo notes that fans really liked Jushiro's powers and are very curious of how it extends to the Bankai. So Jushiro's Bankai is still in Kubo's head, and I think we will get to see it in some capacity going forward. Do keep in mind, we do still have BBS putting out unique characters, and maybe, just maybe, they'll call in a favor from Kubo and we'll get a Bankai Jushiro or something, which sounds super dope. Maybe we'll see it for the Bleach celebration coming up for the anniversary. Who knows? I'm waiting with bated breath to see what this could be. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think about Jushiro being like one of the strongest characters in the series if he wasn't sick? What do you think his Bankai could potentially be? I'd love to hear all that in the comments down below. If you would like to discuss further, my Discord is down in the description, so if you want to join that and come talk with me and other Bleach fans, that's totally dope. You can also come there to debate and kind of sharpen up your skills. You can also talk to me about some past videos that I've done, because I know there's a lot of people that are like, this video is really stupid. And I'm like, all right, man, if you want to come talk to me about it, I'm always there. I'm ready for the smoke. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace late, guys.